No, you're still a problem. It's okay, we can fix that in post. I'm kidding, we don't have post.
Post what?
I know. Welcome back to Shunned for Good Reason. I'm Anna.
I'm like that.
You're doing great.
Yeah. Not sick.
Tess is finally, hopefully, getting to the tail end of being sick.
Yes.
And I am gradually succumbing
We're doing awesome.
to the plague.
The plague. Yes.
No.
Must have been hanging around fleas.
We were just talking about fleas.
The little fleas.
I'm in a box, that box, another box, and then made it to myself, and when it arrives, smash it with a hammer! Or I could just poison him with this. Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
How's your week going?
I've been sick.
You have been sick. Missed a couple days of work.
Yep. I've missed more work this semester than probably the 4 years before that put together. How crazy is that? And I just missed the first 2 weeks because of my foot. And then those 2 days. And I've had to leave early a couple times for physical therapy.
Well, you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm not a work misser though.
You're not a work misser. That's part of the trauma.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, and I especially, I think, have a hard time missing work since we have so many breaks.
Mm.
Like, I feel like we have built-in work missing for teaching,
Right.
you know? And so I feel particularly passionate about not missing work because we already don't work more than anybody else, it seems.
Well,
that doesn't sound
just
right.
because
somehow,
you're physically not at the job, though, doesn't mean you're not working in that sort of a realm.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you are at the work site, you are putting a drastic amount of thought and effort and decision making into what goes on there, especially at a specialty place like yours.
Yeah. Yeah, creating curriculum and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Or just finding it. Like, it's amazing like how hard that is. And that's on top of
You have to
dealing with behaviors.
Yeah. Deal with behaviors on top of all that.
Yeah.
So, have you ever read The Body Keeps the Score?
I keep telling it not to.
Problem.
I have not read that.
It's part of, well, it talks about how PTSD, and specifically chronic or complex PTSD, manifests in the body when you go through things like...
Is that what that is?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Oh, no.
When you go through things like war or fundamentalist religion or just being in super traumatic relationships for an extended period of time, your body is in such a chronic fatigue mode that they don't talk about this quite as much in that book, which is by Bessel van der Kolk.
I'm so sorry.
I know.
You know, you can change your name. Living proof.
Yeah.
Sorry, you.
And he does touch on it, of course.
That's a he. Thank God.
Oh God.
Sorry.
But the cortisol and the buildup of cortisol and the long-term use of cortisol puts your body into such a fight or flight constant state that like you've been talking about, you're fine, and then you have a week off for spring break, and immediately your body's like, fuck this, I have every illness known to man, and you are never getting rid of it.
Yeah.
Because your body has been stuck in that high cortisol state for so long that it has lost its ability to be at or maintain a baseline, which is also part of why my Garmin is always angry at me for having a far below average heart rate variability, because the body does not just automatically get out of a state like that when it gets out of a state like that.
Yeah.
This becomes more prone to a lot of those more chronic fatigue syndromes, viral illnesses, and somatic symptoms of illnesses. So a somatic symptom is what you think of in people with chronic pain when you go into the hospital because it's become so bad and everybody says there's nothing wrong with you, you must just be being dramatic, you're looking for attention. It's often misdiagnosed as like a Munchausen idea because it's a somatic symptom that we can't necessarily see on an MRI. That's why you're sick.
I have a hard time thinking about this one. I struggle in my own self to recognize it in myself, or even to recognize a lot of times like that I was impacted by the cult scenario as a kid, just because like I was a kid and that's how life was. Right? And like and in my specific instance it was more subtle. Like there wasn't a lot of there were some overt things, but it wasn't like overtly physically abusive, for example, right? Which I'm grateful for. I'm it's a nice thing to not have had to deal with.
Yeah.
So, at least there was something I didn't have to deal with. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. I don't know. But and it's kind of like, I guess it's like now when I get sick, right? And I have to get to a certain level of being sick before I'm sick enough, right? Like, to stop doing things or to not do things or whatever. But you're still sick, even if I'm still sick, even if I'm not at that level of whatever, whatever sick enough is. And I think a lot of times my head, like, thinks about trauma the same way. Like, was that trauma enough to be trauma? Was that a high enough level of cortisol to actually affect me long term? That can't be right. Right? Like, yeah. Like that's how I think. I mean, apparently that's how I think about it in my head. And so like I almost feel like I have to convince myself, which feels terrible. Like I don't like that I have trauma, because in the same way I have to convince myself I'm sick enough to not go to work. Right? Like do I have a fever? Do I have a trauma fever? Is this what having trauma feels like? I don't know. Is there like a thermometer I can get to tell me I have enough trauma to be damaged?
Oh goodness.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and you have to look at more subtle cues a lot of the time. So in any kind of trauma, you're going to have that physical bracing. And you can feel yourself doing that sometimes. And you'll see this in any person, trauma or no, and we all have our own traumas, obviously. So we all do this sometimes. And we all have compounded trauma because it's actually incredibly traumatic to be alive right now. It just kind of sucks to be alive. We are all being traumatized every time we hear the news at this point, and it compounds upon each other. So you're going to start bracing yourself as if you're getting ready. Like if you thought you were going to get in a car crash, what you should do is relax so everything will hurt less. But what you do is try to have control over the situation and brace yourself as much as possible and become rigid. And when you're doing that constantly, even without realizing it, you're going to feel it first in that jaw right here. So in your temporal muscles and in that masseter right there, you're going to start clenching your jaw. A lot of people will see
For
teeth
those listening,
grinding.
Anna's pointing to her temples and her back of her jaw.
Yes, I am. So the temple, for those listening, if
'Cause
you feel...
I don't know what a masseter is. And I went to EMT school. Very fancy.
The temporal muscles you're going to feel if you go right in front of your ear and slightly up, feel for like a little protrusion, right? It should be closest to your eye, and that's where it's going to start essentially, and going up from there as a fan to the, not quite the top of your head, but I have a mohawk, so right around the part where my mohawk starts, that's where those muscles connect at the other side. Those ones are going to be tight, and then the one, if you feel right where you started, back at that protrusion in front of your ear, and go down from that, you're going to feel, as you move your jaw, a muscle right in there. And I don't know if you can pick it up on the microphones that we're using, but mine has been tense for about 37 years now. So that temporal mandibular joint right in there by your ear, it cracks. And that's a really bad sign, because it means that you've been tensing that muscle a lot more than you should be for a long time. So
See,
when
mine
you
doesn't do that, I'm fine.
Yeah, yours doesn't do that.
I
You're fine.
have to go to work.
Now you don't have to wait for your jaw to pop constantly. See, now I loosened it up a little bit. It's gonna be a lot louder for the rest of the episode. Oh no! But those are two of the places that you're going to feel that tension immediately, and two of the places that can affect getting migraine headaches or headaches in general. Your body is trying to stay vigilant, and that's where it starts, because that's where it's got a lot of control. Another one that I know you've experienced and I've experienced too is gastrointestinal issues. We have both at different parts in our lives been unable to digest dairy suddenly, like out of the blue. You just cannot do any sort of dairy. You bloat and are in dramatic pain for hours and hours.
Yeah.
I've been having the smallest amount of dairy.
Can't sleep.
Yeah, you can't
Bad.
sleep. It's very bad.
Yeah.
Super gassy. I've done the same with legumes. I haven't been able to eat beans at different parts of my life. Legumes. It can also look like an irritable bowel syndrome in a lot of people. So suddenly you've just out of nowhere got diarrhea, constipation, abdominal pain, bloating, all of the horrible things. Nausea can happen here, and appetite dysregulation, to where you just want to eat constantly, always eating, trying to get that
I have that problem.
Yeah, trying to get that stress eating, mastication going, because it's comforting to put something in your mouth. It can also go the other way, to where you can't even think about eating at a time like this. It's the worst thing that you could possibly do, and you feel super nauseated and food tastes really bad. But that's part of your body not being okay with itself, essentially. And you can try to take medications for that, or you can just like give your body a rest. Because we've both tried taking Lactaid, taking something that'll help out with that, doing Gas-X, and it does not fix that when it is more of a somatic symptom.
Yeah, well, and somatic doesn't mean not real, right? Like, I think a lot of people think that. Well, even, we were talking to somebody about, oh crap, I forget what they're called, the seizures, the pseudo-seizures.
Yes.
I mean, we even call them pseudo, which means fake.
Well, it means partial. Kinda. It means kind of seizure.
Well, right,
Yeah.
but
essentially.
in popular parlance, we would,
Yes.
like, the thing that comes to my mind is pseudoscience. That's when we use the word pseudo,
Yeah.
which means not real science,
Yeah.
right? And so we call it a pseudo seizure And the way that I think most people's brain, they're gonna interpret that is not real seizure.
Yeah, well,
right.
and even working on a floor that gets people in for seizures and pseudo seizures, a lot of the staff also don't see that as a real problem.
Yeah.
It feels like somebody's being dramatic and doing it for attention. And often those are very difficult patients to deal with when they come in with what we call pseudo seizures, because there's nothing we can really do for them medically speaking necessarily. We call that PNES, or psychogenic non-epileptic seizures. So some of our patients will have epileptic seizures. And your more classic seizure that you're going to see is, because I'm going to just call them both seizures just to be fair to people, because they have a lot of the same symptoms. You will get that absence sometimes, you'll get the muscular symptoms where you're tensing up, like a tonic-clonic that you're going to see, or a generalized that you're going to see on a TV show when they're trying to portray somebody having a seizure, is what we would call a grand mal seizure, or a generalized tonic-clonic, where you tense up and you're like shaking all over the place, and then you just go limp. And then the post-ictal period, which comes after a seizure, you are usually pretty sleepy, you can't think correctly. A lot of people become incredibly combative in that post-ictal state. But those seizures, or either petit mal or grand mal, so a focal seizure or a generalized seizure, which is electric discharges in the brain that often affect the muscles or huge parts of the brain, those ones we can see on an EEG. We can see it on an electroencephalogram. So we hook you up to something with a bunch of electrodes, and we can look at it on the screen and say, oh, look, there's weird electrical discharges, something's going on here, that's what's doing this. And then in a PNES, or a psychogenic non-epileptic seizure, or in popular parlance, a pseudo seizure, or we don't see anything going on in your brain. But the problem there with treating it like there's nothing wrong and you're just being dramatic is that a pseudo seizure is not the absence of a seizure. It has to be viewed instead as the presence of a symptom that we have not yet explained.
Well, at
There's
least
something,
in terms
something
of...
is going wrong. Just because it's not an electrical discharge in your brain does not mean it's not real.
Right. Something's happening.
Something's happening.
It's not like somebody's deciding to be on Broadway and try and act out a seizure.
Yeah,
I feel like that's
which
what
does
people
happen
think.
sometimes.
Well, right,
yes.
That does happen.
It does.
Yeah.
We do have
Yeah.
people who are just trying to fake things so
Right,
that they can get some of the fun meds.
You have
and that
behavioral
does
stuff.
happen. Yes.
Yeah.
But even the behavioral stuff is a symptom of something else.
Right, for sure. There's a reason they're doing it. That's behavior, is communication.
It's not a great way to communicate.
Yeah, well.
But sometimes
apparently that doesn't matter
your
much.
body will try to communicate with or without you in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting too, though, that like... okay, I'm gonna go kind of far out there, but there's a reason. You saying that makes me think of, I was listening to some podcasts recently that were talking about like some transhumanist ideas of, in the future we would all just be downloaded onto computers, right, and living in digital worlds basically. And which some would argue that we're there already. For sure. Yeah, and that was actually part of the thing, but that's actually, yeah, it's the whole thing. But my gut is that doesn't work because of what you just said about our bodies are doing something without us, right? This whole idea that like our bodies are so integral to our human experience, right? To just download my brain, personally, this is a very personal opinion that I feel pretty strongly, and I don't know, maybe being transgender, I feel this more strongly than somebody who isn't. I don't know. I don't know, 'cause I'm not. So that's somebody else. It's a guess. I don't know. I just have thought a lot about my body and how it impacts how I think about things, and feel about things. But there seems to be, to me, oh man, okay, I'm gonna keep going. There seems to be to me that the body has this really strong component to thinking, to feeling, and like scientists don't know, right, where all the things come from. There's like we have guesses and theories, right, about where, is it just those synapses making things happen, right, or is it the synapses plus whatever's causing the heart to beat, right? That crazy electrical thing that we don't really understand. Or is it, do you have to have all those synapses plus the lymphatic system plus the, right? You have to have all those things combined to have the human experience, which is very broad, obviously. And then I would go further. That's what I mean by further. Like, do you not only have to have that, but aren't we all connected to everything, right? Can I have the human experience without my body touching, all right, I'll use the phrase touching grass, going and recognizing my connectedness to the air and to the stars and to the universe, right? Can I have that human experience? And I think it seems like we get so separated from that thought process, that we're a part of everything, that I think it doesn't help us when we're trying to figure out things like pseudo-seizures and behaviors, and because we've separated our way of living and our way of thinking so much from just being part of how the earth is working, like on purpose. We've separated ourselves from it, and it messes with us.
Well, and that's part of why that trauma compounds so much when you're in a fundamentalist religion or a high control religion or anything that mimics that sort of control, is that you are told that your reality is not truth. You can't know truth. Only God can know truth. And that truth is mediated through the people who are bringing it to you. So your pastors, your teachers, your Bible school presidents, that sort of thing. And anything that you're experiencing that denies what they are telling you is a lie. So your body is lying to you, the world around you is lying to you. And when you couple that with the idea of biblical literalism, where the interpretation in fundamentalist circles of Genesis says, go forth, multiply, subdue the earth. And then you take that so Genesis is the first book of the Bible, you take that, go forth, multiply, subdue the earth, and then you couple it with the last book of the Protestant Bible, which is Revelation, which says the earth is going to be destroyed. The whole thing is going to be destroyed. So go forth, subdue it, take everything you can from it, because it doesn't matter what you do to it, it's going to be destroyed anyways. This is a disposable item that you don't need to worry about. So your reality is take, subdue, subdue, subdue. Not just for the earth, but also for yourself, your own body, your own emotions, and your own experience all have to be subjugated to the church's interpretation of reality from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And that can cause a lot of bad things to happen.
Oh,
because not only do you not feel the need to connect with what's around you, but also you don't feel the need to connect with yourself at all.
Yeah.
And when you start trying to get people to regulate their emotions and to regulate their immune systems and to regulate anything, we start off trying to get them back into their bodies and get them back into nature. We want to do breathing exercises. We want to walk outside and touch some things like literally touch grass, come back into it, and start to remove that stress. But when you're told you can't trust your reality, that feels unsafe. Even the act of a breathing exercise or trying to take care of some of the nature around you can feel like an unsafe act because you're not taking the Bible seriously or literally enough if you do that, which is problematic.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's that underlying philosophy that whether they realize it or not undergirds so much of Protestant evangelical theology is what comes from what you just said. the that Genesis to Revelation connection is it's so when you're living in that world, that's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's so subtle. Like if you'd asked me 20 years ago, I wouldn't have even really thought twice about it as a big part of my theology, right? If you asked me what a big part of my theology, I'd have spent hours talking about God and Jesus and all these other
substitutionary
really
atonement, depravity, etc.
all these other things. But the reality is that all of those things really boil down to having to have that underlying philosophy of subduing the earth, and the earth is going to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't get out of that timeline.
Yeah.
No matter which version of, you could be Arminian, you could be Calvinist, you could be, right, whatever version of Protestant theology you want to pick, it still has to fit in that timeline somehow.
Yeah.
Right? No matter what, it's always that base, that foundation, I feel like, that, like, they wouldn't call it the foundation, for sure, but from my perspective, looking back, that pretty much was the foundation of it.
Yeah.
And it's a big reason why I can't even bring myself to like touch a Bible these days, is because of that foundation. Do I think there's some good ideas in the Bible? Sure. but they're all affected by that foundation.
They're all affected by the context of the theology that's been built around them.
Yeah. Well, at least for me, they have been, right? And I don't know, maybe there's a world where that's, you could have a understanding of it where that's not a thing. But for me, I'm so affected by that, or have been so affected by that the Bible is not something I'm going to generally turn to.
Yeah. Well, and it bleeds out too, because we're in a capitalist society, obviously. Incredibly capitalist.
Oh, capitalist.
And sometimes we'll try to imagine what it could be without capitalism, but capitalism is part of that subduing and dominating the earth and treating it as disposable.
I saw this great thing today that really boiled capitalism down, and in this context too.
Yeah.
Where it was like, where it said that it was just a meme I saw on Instagram, but it was a very good one, and it just said very simply, under capitalism, trees have no value until they are cut down.
Yep.
And I was like, wow, that is such a good example.
But it's not just true for trees.
Oh, for sure.
It's also true for humans. So.
You think so?
Absolutely, I think so.
I mean, I believe you. I just haven't thought it through, I guess, to that point.
So if you are viewing the world as having a set start and a set end, if you're looking at it as this is what we're meant to do, subdue, dominate, do what you can with what you're given while you can before the world ends, because the world is going to end and God's going to come back. The earth is not the only thing that is disposable. Your body and health are disposable as well.
Yeah.
Which is why, at least in our strand of fundamentalist theology, it was very much looked down upon to treat your body well. You must dress it in the cheapest way possible, feed it in the cheapest way possible, ignore health problems until they become super duper problems. Like I didn't go to the dentist for a while. I didn't go to doctors for a while. I wasn't medicated for asthma. We didn't believe that birth control was something that you should actually do. It was very controversial to actually treat your body like it was something that was going to be around for a while and you should take care of it, because health is granted to you by God. Your body is disposable. And in Southern Baptist theology, most of that looked like eating fast food. Because if you took too much time to make food and feed your body, if you took pride in what you were making, that sort of thing, it was looked down upon as a waste of time that could be spent furthering the kingdom. Which is why you had such huge instances of childhood illness, diabetes, a lot of problems there, because why would you spend time making healthy meals for your family when you could pick up fast food and take them to another Bible study? And it was really, really hard on everybody's bodies there. But not only that, it's very hard to let your guard down. You have to be on all the time. That performative bent to it means that if you think too hard or if you look too sick, someone is going to think that you are not trusting God enough. If you get too stressed, you're not trusting God enough. If your tummy hurts, you're not trusting God enough. If your children are not behaving, you're not trusting God enough. And that face that you have to put on means that every time you interact with another human being, you are causing yourself trauma again by trying to look like God or your church wants you to look. And if you don't do that, especially in Southern Baptist circles, then you are causing actual damage in real time to your church. If you do not look like you have it together, if you spend too much time doing the wrong things, or if you are concerned about a health problem, then you are putting time towards the wrong thing. Which is why it's so cute in Big Bang Theory. In Big Bang Theory, when Sheldon's mother comes to visit them for the first time, and she's like, God laid it on his heart to give everybody in the congregation 10% off LASIK. Part of why that's funny is that this man saw an opportunity, because all of these people are looking for the best, most convenient deal. He found a party to prey upon and did it very well, and they viewed it as an incredibly holy thing. Which normalized getting LASIK, which, great.
Yeah, that's more than most churches get.
Right. But it has to be, it can't be, you need LASIK. You need to fix your eyesight so you don't run into people on the street. Please come fix your eyesight. Get glasses, anything. It has to be, God laid it on my heart to do this for you. God told you it was okay to get health care in this instance specifically. And that's what made it okay. Before that, she wouldn't have let anybody point a laser at her eye. But now, God told somebody it was fine, so it's fine. But it's culminating and culminating and culminating to where every single food choice, every single sleep choice, because the less you sleep, the more holy you are, every single work choice, car choice, every choice that you make for everything that goes into your body or that is around you or where you live or what you do has to be filtered through this thing until you are always on, and those little muscles right in front of your ears start getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And until God lays it on somebody's heart that it's okay to do like a Jesus-based Pilates workshop, it's not going to start untightening.
It's hard though, because like I think I've done that this semester. Maybe that's why I'm sick. Where like it's just like I set goals, but then it becomes like a religious thing to accomplish them.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I haven't figured it out. Still.
Well, because you start doing it for fear instead of for joy.
Yeah.
So
and it might start for joy, but it turns into fear so fast. Like so it has for me. I don't know if it has to, but
well, because it's hard to uncouple the goal from the fundamentalism.
So hard. I clearly have not solved this. I really haven't. It's I have. I mean, I have this idea in my head of like, like kind of like I was talking about earlier, of like this whole being connected to the universe, and which I think is just the reality of the human situation. That's I mean, if I have a belief system, that's probably what it is at this point in my life. And it's very broad, but it's I as I say it's a belief system, but I don't know if I could even say it's a system at this point, right? It's just a belief with no system attached, because I haven't figured out how to live in that system in and live in this world I live in, right? I have to go to work, I have to make money, I have to pay bills, right? All these things that we have to do just to survive, basically, in a 2026 American capitalism, which does not align with this belief that I have about how humans are, right? Like, it just doesn't. Like, capitalism so separates us from the earth. It so separates us from each other. It's very individualistic. It's very us versus them instead of us and them, right? Or just us. It would be better, right?
Because it makes us compete for resources.
Yeah.
As if they were finite. But and for a long time in human history, resources were finite. That's why we get wars in the first place, is because you need land, you need things, you need to be able to make sure that your people can eat. And that's where that competition comes from. But what we've created in capitalism is an artificial scarcity. Of resources, to where we feel like we are competing against somebody to get the newest $2.99 hamburger at fast food hamburger shop. And you feel like you've won because you have gotten a resource and you have gotten it at a good value to yourself. But ultimately,
it's very short-sighted.
It's very short-sighted.
It's so short, and it's not like, technically on Earth our resources are finite, right? There's only so many things on the planet Earth.
Yes.
Right, but the truth is, like, as far as we know, as far out as we've been able to see and figure out, there's nobody, right? Space-wise, right? It's just us on Earth, right? And if we actually figured out how to work together and stop fussing over 2 square inches of space or whatever it is we're doing, and then making that a competition, I got it or you got it, and started like, oh, if we work together, maybe we could actually get some of those resources that are all over the freaking solar system that we live in, right? Like, Star Trek had a good point. If we actually realize the massive amount of resources we have around us and started acting in such a way as to, oh, we could just actually, like, do this thing together and try and solve this as as humans, as a whole. And I think we could do spectacular things if we made that decision.
Well, but
right?
the
Instead of as Americans,
though,
or as Chinese, or as, whatever it is, we just, those are big groups.
The problem with that, though, is that we would have to start viewing the people around us as resources instead of competition.
Yeah.
And we're not wired to do that. For the most part, most of the culture that we are fed, we're supposed to look at other people as competition, and you can see this, especially. I'm in feminist TikTok. I know it's a shocker to everybody. feminist TikTok shares the worst stories about male humans that you have ever heard in your life, and without fail, it is them competing against an imaginary foe for a totally arbitrary, usually imaginary prize.
The feminists?
No, the
No,
men in
the
their
men.
stories.
Oh, okay.
It's-
that makes way more sense.
Always somebody trying to be better than somebody else that they have made up in their head.
Yeah, it's not
Just
even
made
a real
up in their
thing.
head. No, it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
It's where the idea of body count comes from.
No,
essentially.
yeah. You're competing against
And
some invisible
Exactly.
person with a higher body count.
But not only are you. So when. Sorry, something just buzzed. When a guy asks a girl in this heteronormative construct that we've got going on, what is your body count? And then gets mad about it, whatever it may be, anywhere between 0 to 593 or 2000 or whatever, he's not getting mad at her, he's getting mad at this constructed invisible man who is taller, richer, more well endowed than he is. He is competing with a construct and getting mad at anyone who gets in the way of that construct, anyone who likes that construct more, including himself, because he would rather be this taller, richer, more well endowed person, obviously. And he's getting mad at you as the medium for a construct that he's created. That sense of controversy, that sense of competition is one of the biggest things that makes us keep going, but it's also one of the most toxic things we have.
Yeah. Well, and the trick is, it's hard because I feel like competition is part of being human.
Exactly.
Like evolutionary speaking. But I think we don't have, and again though, like that's thinking of it very individualistically, right? That what you just described. But me and my football. This is one of these things I like about football, is because it's a team sport, right? It's and it's you probably, maybe as people who are paying less attention to football than maybe me, for instance, probably see, and again, I don't know, because I just don't know for sure, but I would imagine you see more often in media and stuff, the more of the individualistic alpha male. There's this one person on this team who's really good, but then you hear about him like drunk driving or being a sex offender, or right, like there's a lot of these stories out the league historically.
When we find out that people are humans.
Yeah, but and the media picks up on those things, right? And there are some teams who try and they'll draft this one guy and he's really good, generally really good football player maybe, but then they try and win just because they got this one person, right? But what I think I really loved about watching the Seattle Seahawks last year, they won the Super Bowl, just to be clear. The last Super Bowl. Well, you don't have to brag a little something. But what was really interesting about that season was they strongly emphasized this I've talked about this before too, but the idea of being a whole team and being connected and making creating opportunities to get to know each other better. And in the NFL, there's every week during the season.
National Football League.
Yes, every week during the season.
I did the thing.
Good job.
Thank you.
A team is allowed on their roster for that Sunday, or whatever day they play. Typically Sunday, but it's not always Sunday. They're allowed 53 players on that roster. Okay. And I'm going somewhere with this, I promise.
Okay. I have so many questions, none of which I will remember the answers to.
Yeah, it is more complicated than it should be. But nevertheless, every week they're allowed 53 players to be available to play on that Sunday. Okay? But they also are allowed to have what they call a practice squad, which has, I guess it must be 17? Doing my math. Yes, 17 players on it. And week to week, people get injured, people get sick, things happen, and so people from the practice squad can be called up onto the 53-man roster. So most teams really focus in on that 53, but the Seahawks last year, they tried to have what they called a 70-person roster mentality, where every guy who was on part of that 70-person roster, which included the practice squad, so guys who couldn't necessarily suit up every week, but they were part of the team, we're all part of the team, right? And so it was just expanding that emphasis on connectedness and making sure that everybody knew what was going on and everybody was on the same page. Even if you might not play that week, you were going to know what was happening and could jump in, and like you could see it when you watched. Like somebody would get injured and the next guy would jump in, and having watched previous seasons of football, that usually doesn't end well. When somebody who's first team starter gets injured and the backup guy has to go in, usually that everything falls apart. Like it's crazy. Like it's so often in the NFL, the backup guy goes in, the whole thing falls apart. But last year, watching the Seahawks, over and over and over again, the backup guy would go in, would never know the difference. It was the craziest thing.
So football finally discovered opera.
Sure, yeah. You have to actually know the part to believe. Yeah.
They just actually discovered what an actual understudy
kind of, yeah, exactly. Which is crazy that like that, and that shouldn't be surprising, but like it was a big deal, like how the coach made this culture that just really strongly emphasized the importance of even the backups, right? Like, which says a lot about a lot of things, right? It says a lot about that culture you were just talking about and how we live in that culture. And so it was surprising that a coach came in and created a culture that emphasized the importance of the backup. And my personal belief is that's why they won the Super Bowl, right? They didn't have that one guy, right? They had some really good talent, for sure, but they didn't have that one guy who just carried the whole season for them, right? They didn't have a whole lot of huge names that were carrying everything. They had good players in depth. And because of this culture, and I honestly think it was mostly a culture thing where they were just valued and recognized for being part of the team. And they did the work and they got rewarded for doing the work, and it paid off. And it took me a really long time to tell that story.
No, I think one of my favorite parts about that story, good story overall, just in general, just for the record, one of my favorite parts about that story was you saying you would think, or one would think so many times, because I would not think, like, because I'm just gonna put this out there. My algorithm does not include any preconceptions about football players whatsoever. The biggest thing I know about football, because I disagree with it fundamentally as a practice, is that people dress their children in colors once a year. It's a religious thing for me that people do, and I don't agree with it, but I respect their privilege to do as they wish. I, as someone involved in neuroscience, cannot ethically get behind in any way a sport that is based on monetizing brain injuries. I cannot do that. But it was still a good story. and I respect your interest in football.
I know. I've struggled with that one.
But I
As a
love
fan,
that
but-
it does tie into opera. I have
Sure.
a music background,
Yeah.
and that makes sense to me that actually works. Because when you look at a musical performance, if you are doing a multitude of musical performances per season, you need to make sure that if somebody is sick, if somebody is injured, somebody can step up and perform their duties. And the way you can see that go poorly, because I've seen it go well so many times, but the way you can see it go poorly that people will actually relate to is the early 2000s film version of The Phantom of the Opera, where Christine Daae is a chorus girl. Everyone is looking down on her, but she does have all of the experience, knowledge, etc., to actually perform as an understudy. But what they have been doing poorly in the culture of that particular opera house, the Opera Populaire, for those curious, is that they have not actually been a team. They have not been performing opera appropriately, and that's why the Phantom is so angry, because he puts so much into this opera house. He's very angry when they stop working as a cooperative. So that's why it's so shocking to everyone when Christine Daae can take over as an understudy when she hasn't studied anything. Is that's a poor culture bleeding over to make it surprising when anybody can do anything, which is where we get the underdog meme as a whole, the repeating concept that sometime somewhere there is somebody who knows everything about everything, and if their big break comes, everything's going to go great and they're going to become popular and rich forever and ever just because they knew something, when really you should be training up these people to take over after you.
Right.
Which is so incredibly problematic in a variety of levels. And in religious circles, it also becomes problematic. Because you have these big players like, what was your pastor's name when you were small?
Ted Haggard.
Hey, that one, yeah. But they weren't training up anybody after him who could actually take over if he fails. They would bring in a youth pastor to take over a sermon. But if something went poorly, it was a capitalized system based on control.
Oh, yeah.
That would immediately fall.
I thought it wasn't as a child, but it was definitely proven wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but that's the problem with your cult mindset, though, is that if your leader fails, everything will fail. And the cult culture that I was in actually raised entire families of cult leaders to make sure that that would not be part of it. That if one leader fell, you would have 15 backups to make sure that it never happened again. Which is what my family's told us.
So you feel that in your body?
Yes, I do. I feel the need to be a cult leader deep inside my body every day.
Tried to bring this back to the topic we started with.
Well, you're doing a great job. But what we're talking about is that this capitalist mononormative culture is not good. It makes people disposable unless they are the leader of something.
Right.
And when you make your body disposable, you don't need to take care of it.
Right.
Very problematic.
Trees.
Leads to somatic symptoms. Fortunately for us, as far as we can tell, trees don't have somatic symptoms.
But they have value before they get cut down.
But
right? So much
don't.
value. They may literally keep us breathing.
Yes.
Like, the value of trees before they get cut down is so high. Like, for humans.
Okay.
And we have no
we're
recognition of that.
We're gonna take that back to a religious and capitalistic standpoint, though. People don't have value before they're cut down. Your teams that you follow do not have value until there's a scandal. Until something bad happens, that team is going to be entirely in the background of something. With churches, they do not have value unless someone is martyred. And I've said this before, it takes a martyr to actually unite people to go towards a common goal. And obviously in church circles, you can go back to, oh, Jesus got murdered and all that sort of thing. But we are more valuable to a capitalistic or religious system dead than alive, which is why it's better for you to die than go against that system. In what we were taught.
Yeah.
Because in what I was taught, you're going to have somatic symptoms if you leave the church, because they recognize that. It's going to be because God hates you now and wants you to die, because it's better that you die than reject what you were taught in the first place.
Yeah.
Instead of recognizing that cumulative stress is actually a thing, and some of us are trying to do something about it.
Yeah. And
I think your dog is making noises outside.
Our dog is making noises outside. She sounds like a squirrel.
yeah. But yeah. Well, and it is so hard to change from that, to go to try and, especially still, like it. I think the problem is that reality that our culture is so dominated by the cult we came out of, by capitalism, and it's really hard to try to live a life that is balanced and growing and connected. Like, it's just super hard to actually do.
Yep. Well, because it has to replace everything, because every single part of your schedule, every single part of your diet, every single part of your home life and your relationships with others, even the mantras that you say to yourself on a daily basis, because we all say mantras to ourselves, whether we mean to or not. We all have internal dialogues that dictate how we treat ourselves and those around us. And when you're trying to leave a system like that, when you have realized that it is problematic, you have to try to replace every single part of that, every single breath you breathe, every single move you make, to take one of the Christian songs that we used to.
There's some bangers in there.
There's some bangers in there, but you're having to replace every single internal monologue, banger or not, with something that's not going to hurt you. And when you go to those internal monologues and actually look at them, like, what am I thinking about myself in this moment? Why? Why am I thinking that about myself in this moment? So when I make a mistake somewhere, what do I think about myself in that moment? What's that first thought that comes to mind about why I'm worthless and hate myself and everybody should hate me and I should die? Like, what is that? Where did it come from? What do I need to replace it with, and how? But it's exhausting to do that with every single thing that you do every single day, when you have been indoctrinated since birth that these are the internal monologues that are acceptable, and this is what you should do because of them. Because the I am worthless, everyone hates me, I should die monologue is the best internal monologue you can have in a fundamentalist culture. Because you are worthless. God's the only one who has worth. Everyone hates you because you're standing for God. And you should die because it's the most valuable thing you can do for the culture is to die. Appropriately, obviously. But those are the best internal monologues you can possibly have. So when that comes up again and again and again and again, and you train yourself and train yourself and train yourself to have that inner monologue, and then you wake up trying to have self-love, but every time something goes wrong, your first thought is, I'm worthless, I hate myself, I should die. It's very difficult to make those poor little temporal muscles calm the fuck down.
It is.
Yep.
On that note.
On that note. grounding. Grounding is what we do. When I have students, I have been known to actually take them outside of the hospital when something absurd has happened to them or something they view as absurd, whether those who they are working with view it as absurd or not. If something shocking has happened to them and they are obviously in their sympathetic and not their parasympathetic nervous system and we're trying to get them like back together, I will literally take them outside and make them touch grass. That's not possible with everyone.
Yeah.
It's great when you can do it. It's not possible all the time, but what we can do is try to start to regulate our nervous systems and retrain them to be more okay with themselves. And I usually do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise, which a lot of people are super familiar with. And I do this for people who are experiencing vertigo. I do it for people who are experiencing the worst news of their life. I do it for myself a lot of times every day, and it helps bring you back out of that sympathetic activation and into more of a parasympathetic space where you can start actually thinking with your brain more.
Which is 5 things you see, 4 things you... I can never remember.
Yeah, well, and you can
touch your... I don't remember which order it is.
You can flip and flop it around quite a bit, but I'll be like, okay, I need you to take 3 breaths for me. They take the 3 breaths, I take them with them. Both of us are starting to regulate a little bit more. And I'm like, can you look around and tell me 5 things that you're seeing? And then sometimes I'll do colors if I need to make it challenging because somebody's like way out there. And then I'm going to be like, I need you to tell me 4 things you can hear. Because there's a lot of sounds in my workplace. So I'm like, 4 things you can hear. 3 textures you can feel. And you have to actually feel them and let me feel them. And then it's usually, I try to do 2 things you can smell. That's not always possible because we use like disinfectants. And then 1 thing that you want to do today. And that's not necessarily one of the senses.
Right, but tasting things is weird sometimes.
Exactly.
One thing you can taste. My finger tastes like skin.
Exactly. So that's why I do 1 thing you want to do because it gives a forward focus.
That's brilliant.
To the parasympathetic activation that you have hopefully managed to achieve by this point.
I always feel weird because I've tried this at work with kids and like, 1 thing you could taste. Like, I've literally had a kid tell me, my skin.
See, that's the problem. So I'm on a neurosciences unit, and very, very frequently, do you know what a vagal response is?
Not really.
You got a nerve next to your asshole, Tess.
Oh.
If you poop, you can faint. So
okay.
Very often when I'm trying to get people to not faint is when I'm doing this. So we're in the bathroom. And I don't want them tasting things in there.
Don't want to taste things in the bathroom.
There's a lot of things you could taste in there.
Don't want to.
None of them are good.
Don't want to taste the things.
We don't want to taste
You have to
those
be
things.
like in a fancy restaurant to be like, what's 1 good thing you can taste?
Yeah. And there's places you can do that. But if your patient's not allowed to eat because their throat is malfunctioning due to a stroke, or if a patient is in the bathroom and you're trying to keep them from fainting because they're pooping,
1 thing you want to
do.
It's way better.
1 thing you want to do with your day. Forward focus. Parasympathetic activation and a forward focus to your day.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
And then we go on from there.
Well, again though, like, it always amazes me how stupid simple grounding things are. Like, it is always like it's so simple it makes kids angry.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I tell them to do this, like it really pisses them off.
Yeah.
Well, they're already pissed off when I tell them this, but I think it's just because it sounds so simple. Like it's almost like you just don't think I can do things, right? Like, or tell them to take a deep breath. Like, it's just too easy, right? Like it's so easy just to take it. Which I say that, but it's amazing How many? I can't even tell you how many times I've told a kid, "All right, we need to take 3 deep breaths." There, I took 3 deep breaths.
Are you happy now?
I saw it happen yesterday. No, that is not a deep breath.
Deep breaths are different from that. Well, but the please stop dying. When I'm usually doing this exercise with people, that annoyance helps me because you have to have parasympathetic activation to describe why you are annoyed by that to yourself. So that sympathetic nervous system fight or flight, you're gonna fight people, and then when someone annoys you by saying, "Take 5 deep breaths, take 3 deep breaths. What are 5 things you can see?" You pop out of that into, "Why the fuck do I hate you so much right now?"
Yeah, for sure.
And it helps bring people down. The vagal response goes away like that when you just get annoyed enough at the person standing in front of you. Which I know is not a great thing to propagate, but it has helped me in clinical practice.
No, it can help to. Of course, some people just perseverate in that state, but
It's true.
if you're trying to help,
It's true, but they're not going to faint while they're perseverating.
they won't faint. Your goals are a little different than mine.
A little bit, yeah.
I'm not usually trying to keep my students from fainting.
That's good. I love that for you.
But it might be. I have had instances of like trying to keep them from hitting their heads or.
Yeah, well, if they're frustrated enough, then they
They're not
are
hitting their
thinking
heads.
about the thing instead of hitting their head on the
Oh,
wall.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I've done that before. Yeah. Of course, then the problem is that sometimes I've gotten to a point with students where they just realize that doing that is keeping them from having to do work.
Yeah.
And so they use it as an avoided strategy.
That's possible.
But that's a whole other thing.
That is another cool thing. Alright, that is it for this time.
It is.
It is. It's okay. We can come back for another episode. But I have to get my temporal mandibular joint a little less cracky first. If that didn't come through the microphone, I just got like 10 cracks out of my back.
Many cracks.